Hello there, and welcome back to another day where I have some free time. And in this day's video, we'll be adding on to nobita.h on how the users can pass compile options to Nobita, specifically the build tool options that I've set on the very first video, the set build tools function. We'll be changing that today. So let us get started. So in set build tools, I'll be changing this to something else. Maybe something like an enum or like beta, build tool, and bt. Of course, this enum does not exist yet. And in the set prefix over here, I'll be removing that since I have another plan for that one. So I can copy this enum and change it to build tool. Now, the choices that I would like to support over here is GCC and G++. Make that GPP since, well, plus plus on enums does not really work. And I guess Clang and its C++ counterpart. Though, maybe it's better to call this LLVM instead. Since there's also, well, not just Clang, but also LLVM AR for the static library archiver. So I gotta add that for plus plus, and the last one being msvc. Now, for our next implementation, we gotta change this thing. So build tool, change this, and this should be an enum. Build tool, bt, and this can be removed. Same thing with the build tool options. Also the same with prefix. Well then, our first order of business after adding the enum is changing the target to something else. So I will add an anonymous structure over here for, let's just call it compile or comp options. And it shall contain the C compiler and these options. The prefix over here is not really used. And the C compiler, I gotta change the names of these ones. So to object and to executable and to library. Now, if I remember correctly, that msvc has separate options for renaming separate types of files. So if msvc accepts /c to just build or no, compile to an object file, then There's also another option that would rename this. So I gotta add that. Maybe just rename object. And the other one being rename output. Since surprisingly, in my testing earlier, that the /fe flag can rename both DLLs and executables. Now, the executable itself is still /fe, so maybe that's fine. Hmm. I gotta think about this. I guess I don't need this one. Now for AR and AR create options, that can just be AR options. And I think that is that. I gotta add a few more though. For example, add the directories for more include paths and library paths. So maybe include directory is fine and library directory. Now back to set build tool. We can add a switch statement over here for BT, and it should complain that I have not added anything here though, but it's not, which is weird. Well, maybe it's still, the Clang daemon is still complaining about the Windows headers. So maybe I can change that back to standard C11 that we've had on the first episode. Well, first few episodes of this, and restart the stuff, the LSP. So now we can add a case statement for the enum. Use GCC and G++. Next being LLVM, LLVM++, and the msvc one or CL. Now we can modify T on the compile options. First is the C compiler. For GCC, well, that's GCC. And the to executable is -o. The to object is -c. What else? Rename object can stay being null. What else? To library is -shared. Then the add include directories is -I, capital I. And the library directory is -L. Now the last one is AR. Well, that's AR. And the options we use is RCS. Now the same thing will happen with G++. I just got to change this one. But for the LLVM one, well, the compiler is Clang, but the archiver is LLVMAR. Now for the C++ version of LLVM, I think it's Clang++. Yes. Now it's time for the msvc one. Well, its C compiler is cl.exe. Its the executable is /fe with a colon. Its the object is, well, /c. Now this is where the rename object comes in. It's /fo. And its the library option is /ld. Now I think msvc still supports /i and /l. Now next up is LLVMAR. No, I think it's called lib or something. Yep, lib.exe. And the option for this one is /out with a colon that we have to make the argument adjacent to it, sadly. So we cannot cheese that with our vectors easily. Now that we've got this covered, we can now go back to build target. And over here, we can add new functions. Static void nobita build objects, which we can delegate the other stuff to another function over here. Now, first of all, is the dependency parts. Over here is the object ones. So we can call nobita build objects on T, and I think it can wait over here. Now, after it built the objects, it's gonna wait for all other processes. No, it maybe I should add a wait all on here for now. Then we can get to this stuff. So here's build objects, which it would differ a bit. So first of all, compile options, that's fine. But, well, the C flags is fine. No, it's gonna differ over here. Compile options. Maybe I should have added the actual thing itself here. The enum itself. So enum nobita build tool bt. Then we can get back to build objects and switch this bt variable. Though first I gotta initialize this thing. in set build tool, which I can just add in the end. Compile options that bt is bt. Now back in build objects. For the case over here of Nobita GCC, and I wonder if this would work, and G++. I wonder if C accepts this. Huh, now that's surprising. I guess that will not work. So I have to copy paste this one. Now in GCC and the others, maybe I can just let this fall through. G++, LLVM, and LLVM++ is where it breaks. And I think this should work. So it can add the compile options to make this an object. Though, yeah, let's get the output of this for now. And the actual file itself, compile options, that to object, which is the source over here, and the actual output, and then null. Now we have msvc. Which differs a little. First, its object. Well, we gotta set this to rename object instead. And what else? Yeah, I think this is it, to be honest. Now for rebuild over here. Well, I guess we can just return this. So boolean rebuild false. Change the return type of this to a boolean. Then return rebuild, which we can add over here. Now for the next part is still the same. Adding the name and to actually relink the stuff. Now over here, this is gonna differ a little. So more function delegation over here. So static void nobita build exe with the target. Then a shared lib. Then the last one is the static library. Which over here No, wait a second. This is misleading. Maybe just set is fine. To add the command stuff over here, since that is where it will differ. So just call it over here. Nobita set exe on T. And here it's shared lib. And for the static library as well. Now for the custom command, well, no need for an extra function for this one. And then it can execute that. Now it can copy the headers as well. Though, maybe it's possible to copy the headers first before rebuilding the objects. Now we can add the stuff here. So we can switch the compile options, the build tool, and I can copy the case statements over here. I wonder if it would complain that I let it fall through. But what can we append over here? Well, I gotta change the thing. Well, the name of this thing. Well, not name, the arguments of this thing. I need the output of this one here as well. Since I'm not gonna change it, so that can be a constant. Now add the output over here as well. Then go back over here. Now if it's these ones, then it can add the one to the full command. Firstly, the C compiler, the flags. So vector, append vector, full command, T, and C flags. Now the to exe over here. Then the output name. Well, that's fine. Just cast that to a normal character pointer. Then I'm gonna need the sources. So the objects, I spelled that one wrong. Then the last one is the link flags. Now, surprisingly, this feels like Maybe this can work as well with msvc. So just let that fall through. And it will differ at the library, hopefully. So to executable, no, we need to add one more flag over here, which is to library. And I think this is fine, maybe. Now, what else can I add over here? Maybe it will differ at the static library a little. Which it will call AR with the options. And it will call on with the AR options with the name of the output. Now this is where it can differ with these two. So break. Since in msvc we can do a little trick where we add something. Nobita format, add a formatted arguments to t. And the argument type is just add on to the compile flags. And what we want to add is the following. First off is the AR options along with the output. Now, this is where it will get a bit weird. Since we'll append something to full command from the compile flags indexed by what was used by the C flags -1. And don't need to worry since this will be freed later on. But I guess we can try. What would happen? We can see what would happen. But first of all, let's try rebuilding this. Well, that's normal. So split into build Linux first. We can remove this and set it to GCC. Now let's try rebuilding this thing. Okay, the address sanitizer is not giving any complaints. Now let's try um, rebuilding the one from Windows, well, it would also fail. But we can set this to um, msvc. Let's see what would happen. Let's run this via wine. Well, I guess it failed. So I guess I can only test this in a Windows system. But let's try the script given by the msvc Python stuff that let me install msvc here in the first place. Yeah, it fails. Hmm. I guess I can try to debug that off camera since we're already 30 minutes in. But the glob is working. Also, I gotta change try rebuild over here with the following. So, hmm, what can we add over here? Well, this one will be moved. And surprisingly, we can use set build tool over here on E and using Nobita build tool LLVM. Same thing here with GCC and with msvc. Now we can add, well, now we can append in full command the stuff from compile options, the C compiler that each of these have. Next step is, well, surprisingly, the 2exe, the output being um, argv0, which is build exe. Though I don't think I have any link flags to give to this. Now the source being, well, file or, well, itself being file over here. And I think this should be fine. But let's try recompiling the Linux version first. Fatal error. Oops. Now this is where I messed up. It should be build file. And we can set this, well, cast it normally. Let's see it compile. How about msvc? wine build. Okay, it executed CL, but it's not working. So it's time to test this on a Windows machine. But still, thank you for sticking with me this far. And in the next one, we're gonna be debugging the Windows version of this. So back in the README, we have done this to accommodate the different behavior of CL, the msvc compiler. But still, thank you for watching this far, and may I see you on the next one.